Hi there and welcome to this special edition of In the Labs with me, Becky. Now, a few years ago I showed you how to create this real sleek 2-glass wine bottle holder that would make the perfect gift for this time of year. Now this year I've kind of turned it up a notch where we've created a 4-glass wine bottle holder. Now rather than having just VCarved initials, this time I thought it'd be nice just to bring some 3D into the piece. So I've modelled up some hollies and berries and we've got those 3D machined and it really brings out the piece. So let's take a look in the software at how we created this. Okay, so we're using VCarve in this example, and in the project folder you're going to get a file called Holly Wine Bottle Holder. Okay, so you've got the terms of use that you need to read and accept before you go and progress with this project. So we're working in a job size where it is 13 inches wide, we've got a height of 12.5 and the material thickness that I'm using is 0.77. Okay, so you'll need to change this all according to the material size that you're using as well. But in terms of the layout, this is the kind of, the 13 by 13 is kind of roughly what we're going for. Okay then, so in terms of the design, so I've basically took what we had originally from the original project that you saw earlier, which would look something like this in vector form, whereby I just took all of these vectors and I basically created a copy of them, and then I just rotated them 90 degrees in order for us to get the cross layout, which will enable us to have access to a further 2 slots to add in 2 more wine glasses. So it's a 4-glass holder. Okay, I'll quickly talk around the layout. So each one of these vectors represents the kind of track that the glass stem will be able to guide its way in, and then it will just slot into. So these circles represent the base of a wine glass. This circle here represents the diameter of a standard wine bottle, which we've got at 3 inches diameter here. This circle here represents the diameter of a typical neck of the wine bottle, and I've just enlarged it a little bit so there's a little bit of give for when we actually machine it out. But all of these things are things that you need to bear in mind for when you create your own version. So you want to just check some of these diameters to ensure that everything will fit together. Okay, if we just tile the windows, okay, so you can see we've got a holly relief. So I've modelled this up in the spire and I have brought it into VCarve so that you can machine that in this software. Okay, so the holly motif basically just surrounds the bottleneck. And then in terms of our layers, we've got various layers here. We've got the holly outline, and that's where the components are sitting on, so that's your holly outline there. We've got a pocket plane, so if I just double click on that, this is going to help us to create a flat plane, which I'll come to shortly. We've got some chamfer hole vectors there to create some nice chamfered effect for where the wine glasses are going to sit inside, and then we have a profile cutout, which is basically a combination of the 2 parts that cross over along with the holly outline that kind of just overhangs some of those areas. Okay, let's switch over to the Toolpath tab and we'll have a look at the setup here. Okay then, so let's start by looking at our material setup. Okay, so the material thickness I'm using is 0.77 inches. We're going to set the XY in the lower left and the Z0 on the top surface of the material. Okay, because we've got 3D in here, we need to position that 3D within the thickness of our material. So I'm going to leave a gap above the model of 0.1. Okay, our model thickness is 0.761, and so we're going to have a gap below of 0.4939. Okay, right then, so we're just going to go ahead and press OK here. Right, and so we're going to start by doing the 3D machining. So we've got 3D roughen toolpath. So in this case, we're going to use an 1/8 inch end mill. We're going to machine everything inside of the selected vector, which you can see is currently highlighted here. And we're going to put a little offset in there of 1/8 of an inch, just so it can just roll past the edge and machine down the sides of that model. Okay, and then we can just basically go ahead and preview that to see how that looks. Okay, so it's going to do this in several passes, and you can see it's took away quite a bit of the material ready for us to go in there with a finishing toolpath. So let's have a look at that one. Okay, so in this case what we're using is we are using a tapered ball nose. Okay, so it's got a tip radius of 1/16 of an inch, and the overall diameter is 1/4 of an inch. Again, we're using the selected vector and we're machining that in an offset strategy. So if we go ahead and we preview that, we should be able to see what that looks like. Okay, so you can see it's going to start off on this leaf here, and it's just going to work its way around, and already we can see that the detail that it's pulling out there is sufficient enough for us to establish that this is a holly. Okay, so I'm happy with the detail that we have got there. Now you'll see now we've got all of these bits that are sticking above because we've been cutting down into where that model is. So what we want to do is we want to clear away everything in between the holly to create the shape of the general holder, so that we have a nice flat surface. So if I just zoom in here and if I just drag my cursor around, you can see we've kind of got a Z depth there of 0.276-ish, okay, something like that. So I know that I need to cut down at least to that amount to get a nice flat surface for when we create a pocket toolpath. So let's go into that pocket toolpath that we've got here. So just so you can see in the 2D view, we're machining everything in between the holly motif and this extra vector that we've got over here. We're cutting down to 0.2A. I figured that 0.2A is just going to basically clear it and ensure that we are going to get a nice flat surface everywhere. We're machining this using two tools, so we're going to use a 1/4 inch end mill along with an 1/8 inch end mill. So the 1/4 inch is going to basically hog out the majority of that, and then the 1/8 is just going to go in on all the little bits that 1/4 inch tool couldn't get to. Okay, so if we close out and we just preview that, we'll see how that looks. So first off, using the 1/4 inch tool, so you can see it's doing that in several passes there. Perfect. And then if we zoom in, you can see you can't quite get in there, and it's some of the details. That's where the 1/8 inch toolpath will come in, and you'll see that it's just going to cut around the edges there. So now we've got a nice flat surface to work with there. Right, next up we've got another pocket toolpath. So here we're actually cutting out all of the holes, so for the glasses to slot into and the actual wine bottle neck to slot into as well. So starting that at the start depth of 0.28, so that's what we've already cut down to, and then we're going to apply a cut depth of 0.49, so that's the rest of the material in this case. We're doing that in an offset strategy, and so that should look something like this. Okay, so you can see it's all cut away, perfect, happy with that. Next up, we've got a chamfer toolpath. So I wanted to give a nice decorative edge or a chamfer to the slots for where the glass is actually going to sit in, and I figured if we have a nice chamfer, it might actually make it sink down into the cut as well. So if we double click on that, you can see we've got these circle vectors. We're starting that again at 0.28 because we've already cut that away. We're using a 90-degree V bit here, and I'm cutting down an 1/8 of an inch, okay, and that's just going to give us a width of an 1/8 of an inch as well. The chamfer type, we're actually going on the outside of that vector where we're sloping upwards, and so you can see this graphic beautifully demonstrates what that should actually look like. Okay, and so if we go ahead and preview that, you'll see that's what that looks like, which looks great, like it. Then we can close out and then run through the final toolpath, which is the profile cutout. Again, start depth 0.28, cut depth 0.49. We're just using a 1/4 inch end mill here. Machining on the outside, got some tabs in place. You can see them there. You can edit those if you want using the edit tabs option, where we've got a length here of an 1/8 of an inch and a thickness of an 1/8 of an inch. So that's enough to really hold that to the rest of our waste material. And if we preview that, we can take a look and see how that looks. Okay, so I'm happy with what we've got in the preview here. So let's head over to the labs to get this machined. So the material I'm using is acacia. Now the first path that we're doing here is the 3D roofing, so we're using that 1/8 inch end mill to do the roofing pass, just to really hog out all of the material so that we can go in safely with the smaller tool. So you can see all of the various steps that we've got in there. Okay, so at this point it's time to do a tool change, so we're switching to that tapered ball nose, and this tool is really just going to bring out all of the detail in the holly. So there we have the finished holly. I think it looks great. Time for a tool change. We're switching to that 1/4 inch end mill where we're going to run the pocket toolpath, and that's just really going to flatten everything off so that everything is in line with the bottom of the relief. Okay, so you can see how flat that area is, and it's looking pretty good. Okay, so at this stage, rather than switch to the 1/8 inch tool to run the second part of the pocket pass, I thought to save on a tool change, I want to jump to the next toolpath, which is the pocket toolpath, to cut out the slot holes for the glasses and the bottle. So you want to check that the bottle fits inside the hole. You can see we've got a bit of give there, so I was happy with that. So then here I'm going back now, so I'm switching to that 1/8 inch tool just to run the second part of that pocket pass. So now for a tool change, we're switching to that 90-degree V-bit to run the chamfer toolpath, and that's just going to create a nice chamfered effect, which you can see there. It looks great. Last toolpath, we're using that 1/4 inch end mill, and we're just running a profile around the part to cut it out. We've got some tabs in there to hold it in place, and that's pretty much it. So just detabbing those tabs, just using a little handsaw. You can see it's a little bit frayed in places, so it's nothing that a little bit of sandpaper, a sand belt can sort out. And then just to finish the holly, to get rid of the fuzzies, I'm just using a little wire brush. To finish, I thought it'd be nice just to use simple teak oil just to really bring out the grain in that material, and you can see it's done a really good job at that. To finish, you want to look at getting some cork lights, okay? So you can get these online, and they just really finish off the piece if you wanted it just as a decorative standalone item. And so there we have our final centerpiece. Now, if you fancy having a go at creating your own version of this wine bottle holder, then please head over to your V&Co account where you can download the project files from there. And if you like this video, give us a thumbs up, and if you've not yet subscribed to this channel, then please hit the subscribe button for instant updates on the latest videos that we'll be releasing. So thank you for watching, and happy making!